Join us this week as we start the search for a boat that fits our mission.
About to leave, already packing. Come with me, I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see the world in action, what we can be, life with no distractions. We'll get away, this is what we waited for. Take my hand, we'll make it somehow. We can't miss out. Be free with me. Be free. Be free with me. Be free.
We're here today in Rairoa, Tuamotus in French Polynesia, and we're sitting down today just to have a conversation or a talk through how we bought the big dog, the boat buying process, and you know what we went through at the start of our mission here.
So we've had a lot of people ask how we got to the point of purchasing our boat and how did we pick the boat that we did. So we're hoping to answer some of those questions today. So our timeline started back in December 2024 when we finally sold our Georgia house. It was on the market for about a year. And once we sold that house, then we could really start being serious about purchasing the boat and actually going to look at boats and making offers. So before that time point, though, we have been involved with an organization called Blue Water Cruising, and so they help you to kind of look at what is it that you're planning to do on a boat and what's going to fit your needs and what is the maintenance cost going to look like and what type of boat do you want to buy. So we had been doing a lot of research on this before that point and had a pretty good idea of what we were hoping to purchase. So our 5 kids are on board with us. So we knew that we needed a fairly large boat to fit all of us and all the food and everything that we would need for crossing the Pacific Ocean. And so we had it kind of listed out as important items to be 5 or 4 cabins, a fly bridge. We really wanted a galley down, so to have the kitchen downstairs so that we could have more living space upstairs and a big enough dining room table for our bigger family. We wanted to go with an older boat, something between like 2000 to 2010, so that we would know that it would be a very solid built boat, and also that it would be mostly depreciated in comparison to the newer boats. And then we also were hoping that it would be a boat that was already out cruising, just knowing that whoever owned the boat would have all the systems running and would have a lot of the longer term systems that you need if you're going to cross oceans, as comparison to the charter boats that they only have to really worry about being self-sufficient for a week at a time.
Fly bridge was one of Sarah's most wanted things on charter. We chartered boats that had fly bridges, and we spent an awful lot of time at anchor up on the fly bridge, and it wasn't an absolute, but it was a solid
Preference.
want, must have. And so
Wifely preference.
yeah, so fly bridge was incredibly important. So,
Yep.
Very good.
So at the time that we were able to seriously start looking, one boat that was for sale really stuck out to us. It's a Leopard 62 that was for sale in Barbados. So that was around the end of the year, right after we sold our house. But with the holidays, it was really hard to get a hold of the broker, and we were trying to get a video walkthrough of that boat. So that boat was called Silver Moon, and it was in Barbados. And luckily, through Blue Water Cruising, we had known the owners of this boat, the one we purchased, and we were able to contact them just to ask them questions. because we just wanted to get a feel for if they still really liked the boat, if there were any downsides of the boat, or just anything that we could learn from them, since we were fortunate enough to know them. There's only 4 of these boats made. So the fact that we actually knew somebody that had one of the sister ships to the one we were looking at was kind of a neat thing in itself. And we were just looking to find out any information. And they were nice enough to say, well, if you can't get a hold of the brokers and you really want a video walkthrough, we'd be more than happy to give you a video walkthrough of our boat, because it's essentially the same. It had just a slightly different layout. So real minor things that they changed throughout as they made the 4 different sister ships to this one. So we were fortunate to get that video walkthrough and see that we really liked the boat.
We did the video walkthrough on actually this boat that Sarah was talking about, and then later and we decided that the Leopard 62 was a viable, like a contender for us. It was something that we were definitely interested in, and so after the holidays we got a video walkthrough of Silver Moon. It took weeks literally for the broker to line up to get there so that we could do the video walkthrough of the boat. We liked it. I think we liked that layout. We liked an awful lot of things about the boat. There were a few things that held us back, but it was a good walkthrough. And so we made an offer on Silver Moon, and we were in the middle of negotiating that contract when the owners of Big Lost contacted our broker and told us that Big Lost might be for sale. And so we diverted, right, midstream, right? So,
yep, we decided that this boat was a better fit for us than the original boat we were looking at in Barbados. For a number of reasons, that boat needed new engines, which would have been very expensive. And the owners of this boat, they had the boat named Big Lost. They had already done some of the upgrades that we wanted on the boat for when we would cross the Pacific. So they had done a solar arch and a number of other projects that we knew we would want.
Yeah, so it's a big solar arch, 3,300 watt solar arch, which is a huge solar arch for a boat. You can never have enough, but that's a large solar arch. They've done a lithium upgrade, lithium batteries, inverters. They'd added inverter chargers, and just a number of other things. Water maker was working, had a large full-size working dinghy on it. Basically they were out cruising it, and so it was ready to go for us. We had things we still wanted to do with it, but it was already started, and it was an actively cruising boat, which meant that those systems all had to work for the other owners, right? So we diverted.
Yep.
And we stopped the first offer on that Leopard 62, and we made an offer on Big Lost, and they accepted. A little bit of back and forth, and they accepted the offer. So yeah, we came to terms in January on this boat and scheduled a trip to go to Georgetown to meet the crew and just go for a tour of the boat to make sure that this was the right boat for us. At the end of the day, that crew was actively cruising the boat. They had a timeline and agenda, as we all do when we're cruising, and this would disrupt it. And so we wanted to go view the boat, make sure we were sure, make sure that they were sure before we scheduled the haul out. And so in early February, we made a trip to Georgetown in the Bahamas to go have a view of the boat.
So when we came to Georgetown in February, Jason and I were able to make a little bit of a long weekend out of it, and we were able to do some fun stuff while we were there, like snorkeling, hanging out at the beach a bit, and kind of get a feel for what the cruising life was going to be like, just by talking to the owners and getting acquainted with some of the other folks on the boat.
Yeah, we toured the Exuma market and checked out pricing. What cruisers pay for groceries when we're out cruising or on the hook in Bahamas. We saw the dinghy dock, which we've seen on so many YouTube channels, and going under the bridge, getting to the dinghy dock in the middle of Georgetown. But just got a little bit of a feel for the cruising life. There was At the resort that we stayed at, there was musicians that were on sailboats that were staying across the harbor, and they came over, so you'd see them cruising in on their little boats and their dinghies and coming ashore and going to the club there, and just kind of got our first little glimpse into the cruising life, different from the charter boat life that we had previously done.
Yep. So we went to the dinghy dock in Georgetown, and that's where we met with Kelly and Connor. They came to pick us up to come bring us out onto the big loft so we could see it, and get a tour and find out all sorts of stuff about our potential new boat.
I think that tour wasn't really long. It was maybe an hour. We walked around the boat, we looked at the systems, just talked through them with them, and got a comfort about how they took care of the boat, the condition of the boat, which is for a almost 25-year-old boat, in incredibly good condition. It's been very well cared for, but got a real feeling for how the boat was cared for, how things worked, and for me at 6 foot, almost 6'8", that the ceiling clearances were good, that I could navigate around the boat. It was going to fit our family and all those things. So we did that, probably an hour, maybe a little over an hour tour.
And then the other thing, they also have a YouTube channel. So while we were going through negotiations, we were able to watch and catch up on all of their YouTube episodes and see all the work they've done on the boat, and kind of take a look at the quality of work that they did and the quality of parts and stuff that they put in. So that gave us a good comfort level as well in terms of purchasing this boat.
Yeah.
Which you don't always get that.
Yeah, it's awesome because you could see the way that they thought about things, and they wanted to fix it right. It wasn't a patch job ever, and they were doing the best they could. It's hard when you're a cruiser to get good work, to get materials, to get everything, and they did a really good job of managing that. And it's made us feel good. Different, I think, than a charter boat. An ex-charter boat typically, not saying anything about any particular charter boat, but charter boats are typically just get it fixed, keep it running for the next charter, and not thinking about the long term and the systems and everything that you need out on the hook. They're just really looking to get back to the dock at the end of the week. So yeah, I think that was a good tour. Yeah, so I think after that we felt pretty good about the boat. We were convinced or ready to move forward to a haul out. Haul out has, for us, some financial implications. There's costs for us, for the sellers. They actually were in Georgetown, and we agreed to do the inspection in Freeport, Bahamas, which was the direction that they came from. And so for them, they had to reverse and go north instead of south, as they were making their way down through the Caribbean to Grenada. And so for all of us, we had to get a kind of a good feeling that this was very likely to happen. We were going to spend the money and spend the rest of the time to get to the next step. And so we came to terms. We all agreed, a few weeks later to meet in Freeport, Bahamas for the haul out and boat inspection.
In March, we flew back to Freeport for the inspection, and we met with a rigger and finished the rigging inspection the day we arrived, and then we did the haul out and inspection. That was the next day.
Amazing.
Much appreciated.
Where would you like me to put it when we're done? Where do you want me to put it when we're done? You got it.
And so all of those things went very well. There really wasn't any big surprises, a few minor things that the owners weren't aware of, things, that they found as they did some detailed inspections. But for the most part, everything that was on the list, they had already acknowledged to us some of the things that needed some upgrades or some fixing on the boat. So the good news was no big surprises during the inspection or rigging.
Yeah, I felt like they disclosed everything. I think maybe they disclosed more than they had to, but it just made us comfortable with the sale at the end of the day. Right? I think probably another thing that was big was the owners throughout the whole process that they offered to help, right, to advise. And when you're buying a boat, it's a used piece of equipment. There's been repairs done. There's lots of nuances to a boat, and if you buy it without any help, you're really truly on your own. But the sellers were very gracious with their time and offered to help at any time possible, at any time needed, and that was a great feeling. And honestly, we've also helped 50 times at least.
That's right. That they bailed us out on questions since lots of times, but they've been great through the whole process and even after. As little things come up, you even go back to them and say, hey, did you ever have a problem with this or that? And find out if they have any history or suggestions on troubleshooting if they had issues before. So overall, a very good experience for us with the boat buying process. So we were very fortunate in that regard, because the boat buying process is a little bit like the Wild West. It's not like you have the regulations and the oversight you do with, say, car sales or other types of sales. So we were very fortunate that we had such a smooth transaction. We did use Blue Water Cruising to be our broker through the sale as well, which was super helpful. We felt like we needed that assistance with going through the process to make sure we didn't make any major mistakes. Just kind of a piece of comfort, I guess you would say. And that works out very well for us as well.
I think one thing particularly about our agent that I appreciate is he spent years cruising on a boat. It was a trawler, it was a motorboat, it wasn't a sailboat, but he spent years out on the hook doing exactly what we're doing. And so he had just so much insight and so much information that just helped us to understand what we were getting into, to understand the watch outs, and to understand how things were really going to play out on the boat. And I think a lot of brokers have never lived on a boat. I think that's an important thing, that they've lived your life, and I think that's they've used the boat the way that you want to use the boat, and I think our broker certainly did that.
Absolutely.
So after the inspection, we came to an agreement on a close date. We went through it, an international transaction. The boat was sold in the Bahamas, bought as a U.S. flag boat, and sold as a British flag boat, British Virgin Islands flag boat. So lots of complexities. Again, the Wild West Sarah talked about, there's a lot of different laws and a lot of different things that happen as a part of that, and that was all seamless. And I think actually we closed a day or two ahead of schedule, and I think we were very nervous that something would fall through with our timeline and what we wanted to do. We were nervous that it was, something was going to go wrong, which would, greatly affect our mission and what we were trying to do. But everything went flawlessly, and they were just as anxious to sell as we were to buy this boat. So
join us next time as Mom, Dad, Blaine, and I go get the boat in Freeport and bring it home.
Be free with me. Be free.
Do that again, but don't say 4 times in there.
that's how I was trying to read it and prep first, and then I failed. Oh.
Okay,
All
try
right.
it. Start.
One more time. From the top.